Imagine this. Your mind is a relentless engine, constantly churning, planning, striving. Every day feels like a battle against the clock, against your to-do list, against the sheer weight of expectations. You push harder, you organize more, you try to control every variable, convinced that more effort, more force, is the only way to achieve your goals, to find peace, to finally win. But the harder you push, the more resistance you feel. The world doesn't bend to your will. Frustration mounts, burnout looms, you're exhausted, and the victory you seek feels further away than ever. Then a whisper from ancient wisdom, from a figure named Lao Tzu, drifts into your consciousness. He doesn't offer you a new strategy for forceful control. He doesn't give you a 5-step plan for aggressive achievement. Instead, he presents a paradox, a seemingly passive approach that holds an incredible, almost invisible power. He suggests that you might be fighting the wrong battle, or rather, fighting in the wrong way. What if the greatest strength wasn't found in forceful exertion, but in yielding? What if real power came not from imposing your will, but from aligning with a deeper, natural flow? This is the essence of Wu Wei, often translated as effortless action or non-doing. But how can non-doing be powerful? How can yielding lead to mastery? Let's unravel the profound philosophy of Lao Tzu and discover the hidden force that can reshape your reality, a force that works with the world, not against it. Most people believe that success, influence, and peace of mind come from direct, forceful intervention. We're taught to tackle problems head-on, to assert ourselves, to make things happen through sheer willpower. But Lao Tzu, the legendary founder of Taoism, offered a radically different perspective. He believed true power wasn't in the fist, but in the open hand, not in the rigid oak, but in the yielding bamboo. Why do we constantly strive and force things? If you've ever felt that gnawing pressure to always be doing, to always be in control, you know how pervasive this urge is. But have you ever paused to ask why we operate this way? Lao Tzu might suggest it stems from egoic desire. We force outcomes because our ego craves validation. We want to see our direct imprint on the world, to say, I did that. Letting go of control feels like a loss of self, a surrender of identity. Fear of the unknown, inaction, or even less forceful action can feel terrifying. We equate stillness with stagnation, yielding with defeat. We push because we're afraid of what might happen if we don't, driven by an anxiety that the world will fall apart without our constant intervention. Societal conditioning. From a young age, we're often praised for trying hard, for hustling, for making an effort. The idea of achieving through non-effort sounds counterintuitive, even lazy, in a culture that often glorifies relentless activity. Lao Tzu saw these tendencies not as strengths, but as sources of friction and unnecessary suffering. He believed that those who constantly push against the current are not in control. They are merely exhausting themselves. The moment you try to force an outcome against its natural inclination, you've already introduced a struggle. Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching and the power of Wu Wei. Lao Tzu's central concept, the Tao, can be understood as the fundamental, natural order of the universe, the Wei. And Wu Wei is the art of living in harmony with this way. It's not about doing nothing. It's about acting in accordance with nature, without artificiality or excessive effort. Think of the Taoist sage, the ideal practitioner of Wu Wei. This individual is not a passive bystander, but a master of timing and appropriateness. They observe the patterns of nature, understand the flow of events, and act only when the moment is ripe, with minimal force, achieving great things with apparent ease. The sage doesn't swim against the current. They use the current to guide their vessel. They don't try to bend the river to their will. They understand the river's course and navigate it skillfully. Example, imagine a master gardener. They don't scream at the seeds to grow faster. They don't yank the saplings upwards to force their height. Instead, they understand the needs of the plants, the right soil, the right amount of water, the right sunlight. They create the conditions for growth, and then they allow nature to take its course. Their action is subtle, supportive, and perfectly timed. This is Wu Wei. Why is strategic non-forcing, or Wu Wei, more powerful than constant striving? Wu Wei, when understood and applied, is not weakness. It's an incredibly potent form of influence and effectiveness. It allows natural forces to work for you. Instead of fighting against the grain, you harness existing energies. Like a surfer riding a wave, you use the power already present, achieving more with less personal exertion. It conserves your energy. Constant forcing is draining. Wu Wei allows you to act decisively when necessary, without the burnout that comes from battling every minor obstacle. Your energy is preserved for what truly matters. It fosters adaptability and resilience. The rigid tree snaps in the storm, while the bamboo bends and survives. Wu Wei is about flexibility, about yielding and adapting to circumstances, making you more resilient to life's challenges. It creates harmony and reduces conflict. When you stop trying to impose your will on others and on situations, you reduce friction. People and events are more likely to align with your true purpose when they don't feel forced. The sage, embodying Wu Wei, doesn't just abstain from forceful action. They use this non-doing as a profound tool. A moment of non-intervention can allow a situation to resolve itself. A gentle suggestion can be more persuasive than a forceful command. A patient observation can reveal the perfect moment to act with minimal effort for maximum impact. This is why Lao Tzu's vision of power is not about dominating the current, but about becoming one with it, mastering the art of navigating life's river before you even set sail. Wu Wei is not just an abstract concept, it's a principle embodied by nature and by those who have learned its subtle art. Let's explore a few examples, some directly from nature, others from human endeavor, that illustrate this profound idea. Water, the ultimate symbol of Wu Wei. Lao Tzu famously said, "Nothing in the world is as soft and yielding as water, yet for dissolving the hard and inflexible, nothing can surpass it." Water doesn't fight, it flows. It goes around obstacles or, given enough time, wears them down. It takes the shape of its container. It can be gentle enough to sustain life, yet powerful enough to carve canyons. Water achieves its aims not through direct confrontation, but through persistence, adaptability, and by following the path of least resistance. It doesn't try to be powerful. Its power is inherent in its nature. The master martial artist, e.g., Aikido or Tai Chi. Consider a martial art that emphasizes redirecting an opponent's energy rather than meeting force with force. The Aikido master doesn't try to overpower a stronger attacker. Instead, they yield, blend with the attack, and use the opponent's momentum against them. Their movements are fluid, economical, and appear almost effortless, yet they can neutralize a much larger, more aggressive foe. This is Wu Wei in physical form, achieving victory not through brute strength, but through intelligent yielding and harmony. The wise leader or diplomat. Lao Tzu wrote, "When the master governs, the people are hardly aware that he exists. When his work is done, the people say, 'Amazing, we did it, all by ourselves.'" A leader practicing Wu Wei doesn't rule through overt control or constant decrees. They create an environment where people can thrive, removing obstacles and empowering others. Their influence is subtle, like a gentle breeze that guides a sailboat. They achieve their objectives by inspiring and facilitating, rather than commanding and coercing. The outcome feels natural, almost inevitable, a collective achievement rather than a display of personal power. The common thread, power through alignment and yielding. What do water, the martial arts master, and the wise leader in these contexts have in common? They don't waste energy on unnecessary confrontation. They understand and work with existing forces rather than against them. They are patient, observant, and act at the right moment. They embody the principle that true strength often lies in flexibility, adaptability, and the ability to yield strategically. The next time you feel the urge to force an outcome, to push against resistance, ask yourself, am I acting out of egoic need, or am I aligning with a deeper flow? Because true effectiveness, as Lao Tzu teaches, often comes from the most unexpected, effortless seeming actions. Why do we struggle? Why do we feel this constant compulsion to push, to control, to micromanage our lives and the world around us, even when it's clearly not working? Most people believe their efforts are logical, aimed at achieving desirable outcomes. But often, they are not. Our striving is deeply psychological. The more you force, the more you reveal your own internal tension, your fears, your lack of trust in the natural unfolding of things. Lao Tzu understood this profoundly. His concept of Wu Wei was not just about external action. It was about cultivating an internal state of harmony and trust that allows one to act in alignment with the Tao, so that life's currents carry you rather than you fighting against them. Modern understanding of well-being and even productivity increasingly echoes these ancient insights. Let's explore why we get trapped in forceful striving. 1. The illusion of control. Our brains are wired to seek patterns and to believe we can control outcomes more than we actually can. This illusion of control makes us think that more effort, more micromanagement, will inevitably lead to better results. We double down on strategies that aren't working simply because the alternative, letting go, trusting, or trying a less forceful approach, feels like admitting defeat or losing control. Wu Wei challenges this by suggesting that true control comes from understanding and aligning with larger forces, not by trying to dictate every detail. 2. The tyranny of shoulds and societal pressure. We are bombarded by messages about what we should be doing, how much we should be achieving. Hustle culture glorifies constant activity and equates busyness with importance. This creates an internal pressure to always be pushing, often without questioning if the effort is effective or even aligned with our true desires. We fear being seen as lazy or unproductive. Lao Tzu's sage, however, is unconcerned with such external judgments. They act according to intrinsic wisdom, not societal shoulds. Understanding that effectiveness isn't measured by the sweat on one's brow, but by the harmony of the outcome. 3. Fear of vulnerability and imperfection. To practice Wu Wei requires a certain vulnerability, a willingness to let go of the need to appear strong and in command at all times. It means accepting that we don't have all the answers and that some things are beyond our direct manipulation. Forceful striving is often a defense mechanism against this vulnerability. If we're constantly doing, we don't have to face the discomfort of uncertainty or the fear of not being enough. Wu Wei, conversely, embraces the natural ebb and flow, finding strength in adaptability rather than rigid control. Lao Tzu was remarkably ahead of his time. His insights into human nature, the pitfalls of ego, and the power of harmonious action resonate deeply with modern psychological and even ecological understanding. Let's connect this. Power dynamics in natural systems. Ecologists and systems thinkers understand that healthy systems, be they ecosystems or organizations, thrive on balance and interconnectedness, not on one element dominating all others. Forceful, unilateral actions often have unintended negative consequences, disrupting the delicate web of relationships. Wu Wei, with its emphasis on working with the whole, reflects this understanding of systemic health. Mindfulness and flow states. Modern psychology highlights the benefits of mindfulness, being present and observant without judgment, and the concept of flow, a state of effortless absorption in an activity. Both are deeply resonant with Wu Wei. Mindfulness cultivates the awareness needed to perceive the Tao, while flow is the experience of acting within it, where effort feels natural and aligned. The sage is, in essence, a master of mindful action and a resident of the flow state, the power of receptivity and letting go. Therapeutic modalities often emphasize the importance of acceptance, of letting go of resistance to what is. This isn't passivity, but a crucial step towards healing and effective change. Lao Tzu knew that true strength includes the capacity to be receptive, to yield, to allow. This soft power can resolve conflicts and create openings that forcefulness would only obstruct. The real reason Lao Tzu saw Wu Wei as powerful was not because he advocated for idleness, but because he knew that one who aligns with the natural order, who controls their impulse to force, thereby gains access to a much greater, more sustainable power. Let's put this into perspective. If a problem arises and your immediate reaction is to attack it with maximum effort, you may solve it. But at what cost? Stress? Burnout? Alienating others? Creating new, unforeseen problems? But if you observe, stay calm, understand the underlying dynamics, and act only when and where it is most effective, with minimal necessary force, you have not only solved the problem but have done so elegantly, efficiently, and sustainably. You have practiced Wu Wei. Lao Tzu's philosophy is not about avoiding action altogether. It's about choosing your actions with profound wisdom and awareness. Ask yourself, am I acting from a place of fear or ego, or from a place of calm observation? Is my effort creating more resistance, or is it flowing with a natural current? Is this a situation that requires forceful intervention, or will it resolve more harmoniously with patience and subtle guidance? Because true power, as Lao Tzu envisioned, is not in the visible strain of effort, but in the invisible alignment with the way, the wisdom to act without forcing, the strength to yield, and the profound effectiveness that arises from such effortless action. And that is the hidden force that can reshape your reality. Wu Wei is powerful, but does that mean you should never exert strong effort or take decisive, direct action? Effortless action can be a profound path to effectiveness, but interpreting it as pure passivity or a complete rejection of all assertive action would be a misunderstanding, just as indiscriminate silence would be for Nietzsche's ideas. If Wu Wei meant never striving, then how would dams be built, mountains climbed, or injustices challenged? Lao Tzu's Tao and the dynamic nature of action. Many misinterpret Taoism as advocating for complete withdrawal, a detachment from the world's struggles. But the Tao Te Ching itself is full of advice for rulers and individuals on how to live and act effectively in the world. Wu Wei isn't about avoiding effort. It's about avoiding wasted effort, misaligned effort, ego-driven effort. Power is not in passivity alone, it's inappropriateness. Avoiding all challenge or necessary exertion isn't wisdom. It can be fear or apathy disguised as Taoist principle. Mastering Wu Wei doesn't mean rejecting action. It means understanding the when and how of action so that it aligns with the Tao and becomes truly effective. The Taoist sage doesn't shy away from difficult tasks if they are necessary and the time is right, but they approach them differently. They know that sometimes the most effortless way to move a boulder is with a well-placed lever, not just brute force. Sometimes the non-action of not interfering allows a natural solution to emerge. Why do most people default to forceful action? because it feels direct, visible, and often provides an immediate, though sometimes superficial, sense of control. But Lao Tzu understood that true, sustainable change often requires a more subtle, patient, and aligned approach. Discomfort with ambiguity or the unseen process can lead us to premature, forceful interventions. Consider the farmer. There are times for intense labor, tilling the soil, planting the seeds, harvesting the crop. This is not passive, but the farmer also knows there are times for waiting, for allowing the sun and rain to do their work. They don't try to pull the sprouts from the earth to make them grow faster. That would be counterproductive. Their effort is timed and appropriate to the natural cycle. This is Wu Wei in its dynamic sense. A mind that is never challenged to find a more harmonious way, a spirit that never learns the wisdom of yielding or the power of patience, remains brittle and inefficient. Without understanding the principles of Wu Wei, your actions, however well-intentioned, may remain stuck in patterns of forceful friction. Think of some of the most effective interventions in history or nature. A skilled negotiator doesn't always win by shouting louder or making more demands. Often they win by listening, understanding the other side's needs, and finding common ground, a form of yielding to find a shared path. A doctor doesn't always cure with the most aggressive treatments. Sometimes the best course is to support the body's natural healing processes, removing impediments rather than launching an all-out chemical assault. Conservation efforts often succeed not by trying to dominate nature, but by understanding and restoring its natural balances, working with ecological principles. Their power came not from blind force, but from understanding the dynamics at play and choosing their interventions wisely, sometimes with great effort, but always aiming for alignment. There's a critical difference between effort born of panicked ego and effort aligned with a deeper wisdom. Lao Tzu understood this. The greatest practitioners of any art, leadership, or even life itself don't just act. They act with an intuitive sense of timing and appropriateness. Consider, a martial artist trains rigorously for years, effort, so that in a confrontation their movements can be fluid, responsive, and seemingly effortless. Wu Wei. An artist dedicates countless hours to honing their craft, effort, so that their creation flows with grace and appears to emerge naturally. Wu Wei. A scientist may spend decades in focused research, effort, to arrive at a breakthrough insight that elegantly explains a complex phenomenon. Wu Wei in discovery. People who embody Wu Wei don't act forcefully for validation. They act appropriately for transformation and harmony. They don't strive to dominate situations. They strive to align with the underlying truth of situations. The sage does not act to satisfy their ego. They act, or refrain from acting, with purpose. Here's when you might need more active or yang effort, still within a Wu Wei mindset. When a clear injustice needs to be confronted, and inaction would perpetuate harm. When a specific skill needs to be learned, requiring dedicated practice. When a window of opportunity requires decisive action to be seized. When laying the groundwork, like the farmer tilling the soil, is necessary for future effortless growth. But here's when the yin or yielding aspect of Wu Wei is paramount, when you're meeting immense, unproductive resistance, when the situation is still unfolding and more information is needed, when your ego is driving the desire for control, when allowing space and time for natural processes is wiser, when your non-intervention itself can be a powerful catalyst. Forcing outcomes without wisdom is inefficiency. Acting with aligned precision is power. Lao Tzu wasn't afraid of action. He embraced life, but on its own terms, in harmony with the Tao. If an action makes you more fragmented, more stressed, more out of alignment, reconsider. If an action, even a strong one, brings you into greater harmony, makes you more effective in the long run, engage. If a situation is simply a distraction, a whirlpool of ego-driven chaos, allow it to pass without entanglement. If aligned action makes you stronger, more whole, it's not something to be avoided, it's something to be mastered. True power lies not in effort or non-effort alone, but in knowing when and how to apply each, guided by the wisdom of the Tao. If you had the choice between constantly battling the world with all your might, or learning to navigate its currents with skill and grace, which would make your life more powerful, more peaceful, more truly successful? Imagine this. You wake up one day and the relentless urge to force everything has softened. You still have goals, you still have desires, but the frantic energy behind them has been replaced by a calm, observant presence. You approach your day not as a series of battles to be won through sheer willpower, but as a river to be navigated. You notice the currents, the eddies, the smooth passages. You still act, you still engage, but your actions are different. They are timed, precise, and surprisingly effective because they are not fighting against the flow, but moving with it. Would you waste your precious energy pushing against a closed door, or would you pause, look for the key, or perhaps notice another door that's already open? This is where real power, Taoist power, lies. Lao Tzu understood something that our hyperactive, control-obsessed world often forgets. Nature itself is the greatest teacher of effectiveness, and nature operates through cycles of action and non-action, of assertion and yielding, all in perfect, effortless harmony. Now, picture yourself facing a challenge. Your old instinct might be to tense up, to strategize an attack, to impose your will. But stop. Breathe. Ask yourself, what is the natural tendency of this situation? Where is the path of least resistance that still leads towards my goal? Is direct force truly needed here, or is there a more subtle, more aligned way? Because Wu Wei is not about giving up, it's about giving up the struggle. It's about the wisdom to discern when to act and how to act, so that your efforts are amplified by the natural order of things, rather than constantly clashing against it. It's the art of making the universe your ally. So here's the invitation. The next time you're about to force an issue, to push against overwhelming resistance, pause. Instead of immediate reactive force, observe. Watch how the situation unfolds. See the underlying dynamics. Notice where energy naturally wants to flow. And then, when the moment is right, choose your action like a master calligrapher, making a single perfect stroke. With intention, with grace, and without wasted motion. Or realize that the most powerful action is sometimes no action at all, allowing the Tao to do its work. Because true power, the power of Wu Wei, is often silent, invisible, and utterly transformative. Want more insights from ancient wisdom for modern life? To explore philosophies that can reshape how you think, act, and experience the world? Hit subscribe and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss our next journey into the ideas that truly have the power to change us. Stay aligned, stay powerful,